Welcome to the NES Warp Zone series, where we take a trip down memory lane and revisit each Nintendo release. My name is Craig Majeski. Joining me are Mike Bonebrake.
How's it going?
Good, thanks.
And Aaron Conwell.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, hello.
In this episode, we're going to cover Game Pack number 1, 10-Yard Fight.
We'll start right at the top of the list, I guess. Probably wasn't the greatest game, but I did play 10-Yard Fight. It's a football game, and it's more of a top-down, pretty bare bones football game. One thing I do remember is looking back, thinking kind of weird, is like you controlled your whole team. They all moved in sync.
Yep. It also wasn't NFL, was it?
No, I don't think it was NFL licensed. No.
It was like 5 different modes you could pick from. I think like Super Bowl was the hardest one, and then
Right.
high school was the entry or something.
Oh, okay. See, I had high
there
school.
might have been different colors, but I don't think you even picked.
I had high school
big
on my
teams.
mind, but I wasn't sure if they were actually high school teams or if that was just the mode.
Oh no, that was just.
Yeah, I'm not
Very
sure it was
primitive.
licensed by the NFL
No,
at all.
It didn't have an NFL license. It was actually made by IRAM
Okay.
in Japan, and then Nintendo put it over here. Same thing with Kung Fu.
Right. I mean, most of these games we rented from video stores. So I have very few hours into them, and then some of the games, I that actually purchased have many hours.
Well, I mean, by the time that we all got our NESs, even though you're the earliest one, Mike, by the time you got it, there was so much more games on the market and better ones than these early ones. And what's interesting is Nintendo did, when you went into like a Target, for example, Nintendo very often pulled games out of circulation, kind of like how Disney would pull their stuff into a vault. So they would only have like a select number of their games available on store shelves at any one given time from themselves. So it would be very shocking if you walked into a store and saw every one of the black box games that Nintendo had made up to that point. They wouldn't all be on the store shelf because they would have, unless they just weren't selling, they would have been pulled at that point or not replenished. They would just let it sell out, and then they would reissue it later on if it was something that was enough demand from certain retailers.
I don't think 10-Yard Fight was reissued.
No.
Yeah.
And that's why some of those became kind of hard to find.
Yeah, there's a
even
couple,
even early on in the life cycle. Like even though some of these came out like in summer of '86, by the time summer of '87 rolled around, a lot of the stores were out of certain titles, and Nintendo did not replenish them. So
like I said, a lot of these games we got to play because they're always in the video rental place. So and they sat on their shelves for forever. So
yeah. All right. What did you have there?
Yeah, and real quick, back to 10-Yard Fight and just these games in general. Like Craig said, we all got our NESs later than this time period, and mine was much later, being 91. So most of these, as much as I love the Nintendo, most of these early games I just don't have the best opinion of because I played a better version of football than 10-Yard Fight, or a better version of golf than golf. So yeah, a lot of my scores and thoughts on these games aren't great, even though I love the Nintendo. So
it's hard to say, and that's one of the reasons why
if I played 10-Yard Fight and when it came out, and that might be the best football game that existed to that point. I don't know what was on Atari or ColecoVision for football, but
well, for listeners that don't know this already, on NintendoTimes.com we have a section called the Warp Zone, which is 30 years ago today, but we are writing the reviews as if from that time period. But in order for us to do that, it's something that we would have had to have played from back then. And so
it's hard to be objective.
Something like 10-Yard Fight, there's a reason why we don't have a review up on the site at the moment, because none of us have really, we didn't get to play it in the era that it came out. And so it's really hard for us to give it a fair rating because I really don't know what it would rate compared to like what Aaron was just saying. What else had come before it, and was it revolutionary compared to what had come before it? And the closest thing that we came to on that title would be to read Computer Entertainer, which was a newsletter. They did review it. I can't remember what they gave it. I'd have to look back up on the site. But they were covering that stuff from '82 on, and they were the only one around really that still was, and giving ratings to stuff. And so they would probably be the most objective maybe one to look at, and I don't think it got great scores from them even. And
it's a very slow game.
Yeah.
I popped it in earlier this week, and I could play it for about 1 minute. And like, no, it's I mean today it's a 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 game, But that's not really fair because I'm sure it was decent in 1985.
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah, and it's hard to say really like
Yeah.
how good or how much, and you know, you gotta think back. I mean, just a few years before that, people were playing the freaking Mattel
yes.
handheld, which basically was just dots representing players moving.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So I think
maybe-
this probably was pretty good at the time.
Yeah.
probably it's just it's hard to.
When we've played better football games, even a couple of years after this, it's just you can't go back to 10-yard fight.
Right. Yeah. So you think that would have given you about a 2 out of 10
Yeah, that's being generous.
from what you've played.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe it came out in '83 or '84 in Japan. I see the copyright on the title screen shows '83,
Okay.
but I'm not sure if it came out, if that's the arcade copyright or if it's something else. It's hard to say with that one. But the as we're talking here, I'm looking it up. Computer Entertainer. Curious if they have a review score for this. I was just pulling it up to see. They do possibly. I see what they gave the NES score. Here we are, 10-yard fight. They say that it got a 3 out of 4 for graphics and a 3 out of 4 for entertainment value. So they rate on graphics and then they rate on gameplay / entertainment value is the other. So they gave it a 3 and a 3.
I mean, it would have been a 2-player game, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
That would be.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
these sports titles have that going for it because you can play 2 players at the same time.
Yeah. It says you'll have the choice of 5 difficulty levels as you play against the computer or friend in America's fall favorite. Bird's eye view of the field. You have control in snapping the ball and throwing the ball. In this version, you will not be able to hand off for a run. The only way to get the ball to your teammate is by throwing a pass. So that's interesting.
Very.
It's a good game. While not offering the varied play of the real thing or what's available in some of the football games, what's available in games for some home computer systems, the Gridiron contest will please most football fans out there. That was reviewed in the April '86 issue. They revised their score in the May issue after they got some flack on their score. They gave it a 3 out of 4 then for graphics still, but they gave it a 2 out of 4 for entertainment value. So they said, after hearing from a reader who felt we had been too charitable in our rating for 10-Yard Fight and his reasoning, we decided to go back and take a second look. Obviously, our ratings are based on the personal opinions of the reviewer. However, the reviewer had some reservations about the game even when we reviewed it last month, so it seemed right to go back and try another game or two. The area of argument was over the gameplay. Our reader compared it to the 5200 and ColecoVision versions, which we had tried not to do, per our explanation of how our reviews are done. We got into a heated argument in our offices as to whether the Nintendo software should be compared to other dedicated system software. While we felt it should not be, at the same time, the profile of the Nintendo buyer is someone who already owns or has owned either a 5200 or, in this case, or ColecoVision, and therefore probably already owns a version of this or any of the other football games. So based on this premise, we will in the future try to make relevant comparisons to the Nintendo software from its counterparts. So based on all that, we felt that we had been too easy on the Nintendo version of football, as there simply are not as many options available to the player as in 5200 Real Sports Football or ColecoVision Super Action Football. So there we go.
I never thought we'd spend so much time on 10-yard.
It's kind of fun though.
Yeah, very.
I think it's funny that kind of stuff was going on back then, and it's huge now on the
course,
internet.
yeah. I wouldn't think 30 years ago that was going on.
Hey, we got a letter in, and we should revise our score. Wow.
Thank you for watching Nintendo Times. If you like what you saw, please give us a thumbs up down below. Feel free to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. For more Nintendo news, reviews, previews, features, and more, check out nintendotimes.com. Click the subscribe button below for more videos. If you enjoy our content, please consider supporting us on patreon.com/Nintendo Times.